Okay, welcome to our mini webinar, Everything You Need to Know About Facebook Marketing. Great today to see so many people signing in from different countries. So whereas I would normally say good afternoon, I think today we need to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We purposely call this a mini webinar series because we value your time, and so we're going to try and have you on and off the phone today in about 40 minutes. Our topic is everything you need to know about Facebook marketing, and hopefully that's exactly what we're going to deliver to you during this session. My name is Dax Hammond, Chief Strategy Officer and part of the founding team of Chango, and we'll be coming back to Chango a little bit later on during this presentation. But first I'm going to hand off to Irene, who is from Ampush. Irene is going to be talking about the non-FBX side of Facebook marketing. Today, Facebook provides a lot of amazing opportunities for reaching your desired audience, whether it be people who have already chosen to engage with you, or whether it's looking for brand new people. And sometimes it can be a little bit confusing for the marketer to understand the difference between the Facebook ads and the the FBX ads and the non-FBX, or what was marketplace ads within Facebook. And so today, Irene's going to kick us off and talk about the non-FBX side of Facebook advertising, and then we're going to hand back to me, Dax from Chango, and where I'm going to talk about the FBX side of the house. So Irene, over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Dax. Like Dax mentioned, I'm Irene. I'm a Director of Media at Ampush, and Ampush's focus is to provide Facebook advertising for a variety of different businesses. So today what I'm going to go over is basically what I want you guys to be able to take away from this webinar in the next 10 minutes is a good high-level understanding of all of the available ad products on Facebook and how best to utilize them. So what we're going to cover is you'll have a simplified kind of bird's eye view of these ads and how they address the different metrics and how they enable advertisers to drive towards different goals. And I'm also going to walk through 3 scenarios of main businesses that will cover e-commerce, applications, which includes social games, and brands. And I know this is only going to be 10 minutes long, so if you have any questions, feel free to follow up at the end of the webinar or also follow up offline. So the first thing that you'll need to know in terms of understanding kind of the scenarios that we're going to cover are some of the fundamentals of Facebook advertising. One of them is, what is newsfeed? And newsfeed is basically the name of a placement where your advertising can show up. So on somebody's profile page, newsfeed is where their stream comes in of all of the news that is occurring on with their friends. So it's one of the most prominent placements that you can have as an advertiser. This is also really important to know because newsfeed is the only placement that's available on mobile. So on somebody's smartphone, a newsfeed placement, it's the only placement. It also takes up the entire screen, and it's a very important placement for advertising. The next definition that you should know is, what is a page post ad? Page post ads, by definition, are simply ads that you create from a post that you add to your Facebook page. So the obvious requirement for this to occur is that you have a Facebook page. And you can create any types of posts. It's a very versatile ad type. You can create photo posts, you can create link posts, you can create video posts, and all of these can be converted into advertisements. And so what's really great about page post ads are they are a large format ad. They're one of the largest format ads on Facebook that you can use to show up on somebody's profile page. So we really encourage people to take advantage of page post ads. Next, we'll cover one of the fundamentals is, what are sponsored stories? So sponsored stories are basically ads with the voice of a friend. In this example, we have Michael Scott liked Dunder Mifflin's Facebook page. You're basically utilizing Facebook's social network to understand, like, okay, well, you have information about relationships between friends. Now you can use it in order to create the word of mouth effect, which is one of the most powerful methods of marketing. And so you can automatically create that effect with sponsored stories. Enabling sponsored stories does require that you have a Facebook page. It's also contingent on your Facebook page having enough likes to the page such that you leverage the friends of those who are connected to your page. And so this slide is just reiterating my last point there. When you have sponsored stories, you want to keep in mind that your social reach is limited based off of the number of people that are connected to your Facebook page. So if you're looking for driving a lot of sponsored story advertisements, keep in mind that you'll need to have a lot of connections to the page, and that could be part of your strategy. Build those connections first and then leverage that ad type. So this slide is called a portfolio approach. And what it does is it's an ad matrix that just kind of digests all of the different ad types that are available on Facebook. And what's important here is that there are a lot of different ad types that you can use. There are a lot of different products that Facebook allows advertisers to use, but there are certain requirements in order for you to run those ads. And so on the bottom axis, you can see what are the resources that are required in order to run specific ad types. You can also see how it influences the different metrics and the different goals that you're interested in. So anywhere from awareness to engagement to conversions on your page, there is a specific ad for you. So some ads are great at driving more likes to your page. Some ads aren't. And other ads are great but are only applicable when you have very specific requirements met. So for instance, app install ads. Obviously, you have to have an application that you can install. Open Graph sponsored stories. You can only create sponsored stories if you have an Open Graph app. So here's the first of 3 scenarios that I wanted to cover. E-commerce websites. What these scenarios cover are a basic strategy from a high level where you get to familiarize yourself with like what are the ad types that are available and what's the best way to kind of formulate a strategy to best address your goals and your needs. So e-commerce websites, the ultimate goal for e-commerce websites is to drive new customers, and it's to lead those customers to sales on your site potentially. And so the strategy that you want to employ for e-commerce is basically get people to your site as fast as possible. Focus on high relevance, focus on that conversion, and move people from Facebook to your site in the fastest method possible. And so some of the ways to do that are, one is having a Facebook page will allow you and it enables you to utilize page post ads. And like I mentioned previously, page post ads are a large format ad. You can use it to drive links. We actually highly encourage using a link page post ad. It's a larger format than what you would get from a right-hand side domain ad, for example. And with these page post ads, you get the flexibility to cater your messages. You can pair it with custom audiences where you specifically target maybe your existing customers and you get them through on special promotions. You can also run offers when you have a Facebook page. And offers are basically promotions where you have like either a free product or whatever, a limited amount, and they can redeem it online or offline. And so the more relevant you are in your targeting, the more relevant you are in your messaging, the faster you're going to get conversions through to your site, whether it's new customers or whether it's purchases. And then the great thing about e-commerce is that you have a website, and Facebook has ad types that enable you to use and leverage the data on your website in order to create really interesting ads. So some of those ad types are domain-sponsored stories and Open Graph sponsored stories. Now you can automatically use the domain-sponsored stories ad type to create these stories of users' activities on your site. And they will have social context because all of their friends are going to see it, and they're going to be specific to whatever that activity was. So with Open Graph, if they take actions, then the ads that are created, they're automatically generated. They're based on the actions that person took on the site, and all of their friends are seeing this. And then there's Facebook buttons where you can allow people to share specific products or specific articles on your page and generate organic interest. And there's FBX retargeting, which Dax is going to go into later. And then the last piece requires no Facebook asset. You can run right-hand side domain ads where you are allowed to target based off of all of the basic targeting criteria within Facebook. You can also create specific images and specific language. This is also, right-hand side is a smaller format. It's also not directly in front of viewers' eyes, so keep that in mind. But we highly encourage, this is sort of sorted by priority as well, so we highly encourage this order. And then the next view is on applications. So applications include social games. They include like any mobile apps. They also include like apps like music apps, etc. The ultimate goal here is drive new customer installs. And the strategy really is get them to install as quickly as possible. So for both e-commerce and applications, if your focus and your goal is new customers and new installs, you really don't have to worry about driving likes. That's one thing to keep in mind. So with these ad types that are available, if you have a Facebook app, there are several ad types that you can utilize. There are the right-hand side standard install ads, install apps, which will allow you the same standard targeting, and you can cater your images and titles to the users that you're targeting. Then there's also sponsored results, which a lot of people aren't familiar with. Sponsored results are basically a great offensive way of showing up in search results on Facebook. So we encourage gaming companies to try this out, or any companies with installs to also try this out and show up for where people are searching for your competitors or where people are searching for similar products or similar games. And then if you have a lot of Facebook users on your app, use the sponsored stories install ads. And that way it leverages the voice of a friend who has used the app itself, and that generates word of mouth recommendation. And if you have a mobile app, the only ad type that you can really leverage is the mobile app install. But what's great about this is it doesn't have to live on Facebook. If you have an open graph enabled app, you can create stories automatically and really just amplify influence of friends by showing activities that people took. So somebody listened to a specific song on Rdio. You can target and create ads that leverage what they listen to and then show their friends. And then the last view is for brands. So ultimately, brands want to drive a very positive brand image and utilize Facebook for its social network so that you can really drive conversation, you can drive activity of your best fans, and ultimately create brand ambassadors, people who speak on your behalf. They're the people who are most interested, they're your fans, and they're the ones that are most likely to be much more positive or to lead to purchases of whatever products that you have. So the strategy here is utilize the social aspect of Facebook. In order to do that, you really have to build your likes connection and amplify the influence of friends, and then create these, enable them to be positive about your brand and enable them to share and to talk about your brand. And so the most important ad type here is make sure that you have a Facebook page as your asset. Make sure you have your active in terms of posting to that page, that you have interesting content that people are happy to share. And this is also a great opportunity to just create that positive image that you're looking for, whether it's supporting charities, whether it's sharing interesting facts, whether it's, as an example, releasing a new flavor and asking your best fans to vote on what flavor of product you should have. So in terms of the ad types, sponsored stories are the greatest, are one of the best assets to really quickly build that fan base. And then after your sponsored stories, you have the options of using page post ads in order to drive a variety of different promotions. And we really encourage testing testing different promotions to see, how people react to it and what the engagement levels are. And in addition to that, you can run unpublished page posts in order to drive promotions that don't have to appear publicly on your page. So if it's a promotion that's specific to a city, if it's promotion that's specific to an event, those are also available as advertisements where very specific users can see it. And if you pair it with custom audiences where you have specific email lists, it creates high relevance and it creates very specific targeting such that you're reaching people with a special promotion that they get to be very excited about and share with their friends, and leverage the friendships, leverage those relationships, get that social context into your ads, and get people talking about your brand, and eventually lead them into your stores. And so if you do have a website, you can do something similar to the e-commerce strategy as well. I won't cover this again because we've already gone through it, but basically you can leverage any activities that are on your site, use that data, and automatically create ads with social context. So the final key takeaways that I hope you were able to get from this very brief presentation is that one of the things that is very challenging with a lot of the ways that people approach Facebook advertising is just that it's constantly Facebook is constantly rolling out new ad products. And this is great from the perspective of they're enabling us. They're enabling advertisers to leverage data. They're enabling advertisers to leverage methods of being much more specific and creating ads that aren't a nuisance to people, that are actually adding convenience and are speaking to things that they're already interested in. And so the landscape of Facebook marketing is going to constantly evolve, change. It's never going to be the same. The way Facebook marketing now versus what it was last year is worlds apart. It's very different. So one thing that you want to understand is the landscape is constantly moving, and you want to have either a strategy that moves with it and stay on top of what those new ad products are that roll out, or you want to have a partner, an advertising partner that is on top of it for you. So as a Facebook PMD partner, PMDs will get early access to products that haven't rolled out to the public. Keep that in mind because PMDs all have API access, which is a technology integration into the Facebook system. So be sure that if you are utilizing Facebook advertising, that you choose the right partner to do it for you that will stay on top of all of these different products. And last is know what your options are. And always test. Always test to see what works, see what ads are available. Some will work really well in terms of cost effectiveness, and some will work really well in terms of volume and getting people engaged. And some won't. But unless you test, you will never know. Or unless you have a partner that will test for you, you won't have, you want to optimize for the strategy that you're going to utilize. So thank you very much. Dax, do you want to take it over from here?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Irene. So this is Dax again from Chango, and I'm going to talk about the FBX side of the advertising opportunities on Facebook. I want to give you a little bit of context about what we're going to be talking about and our point of view on these things. So to help with that, the way to think of Chango is that we are a technology company. We specialize in solving this programmatic and big data opportunity for data-orientated marketers. And we actually built the industry's only PMP or programmatic marketing platform that combines everything you'd want from a DMP and a DSP, but without all the inconvenience of cookie loss, additional cost, and the problems of integrating two systems. We're actually best known for some of our full-service media solutions. One of those is search retargeting, which we're going to talk about briefly in a moment in relation to FBX. So as an organization, we predominantly buy RTB inventory, real-time bidded inventory. This is inventory from the media exchanges. And for those of you less familiar with that, very briefly, the media exchanges allow us to buy and target individuals at the individual level, and every single impression that we choose to buy is an individual auction. What this has done for the industry has been quite a dramatic change. Instead of now just shouting at crowds, we're actually engaging specific individuals. And the arrival of Facebook into this world has been a very welcome arrival. Facebook, of course, brings a significant number of individuals, and those individuals perhaps are not necessarily in the same task-orientated point of view as they might be on some other sites when they're trying to complete certain jobs. And so we find the audience to be extremely engaging with our clients' ads. And in terms of the real-time display impression world, then there are numbers of anything from 10 to 25% increase in the inventory available since the arrival of Facebook Exchange in this landscape. Now, one of the things that we've found has been quite interesting is a lot of marketers in the larger brands have kind of become frozen by indecision. They were buying Facebook, what was Marketplace, the various formats that Irene was referencing, typically through their social or search channel. And interestingly, today it wasn't necessarily coming through the display channel. And then along came FBX, which is this RTB format inventory that we talked about. But RTB everywhere else was being bought by their display teams. And so a lot of these brands simply don't know which of their teams they should buy from. And we actually have a few Fortune 20, I'd say, organizations where they're currently not investing as heavily as they should in FBX because they don't know which of these teams should actually buy it. From my personal point of view, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is get something done. FBX represents a significant opportunity for an organization, and irrelevant of where the budget comes from, almost any team can demonstrate that it has value to their organization. What we typically find, because we are very orientated to the display buyer, is that the majority of our clients happen to be on the display media planning side. Now, what's interesting about FBX is that you can't use data or profile data contained within Facebook from registered users. You have to bring your own data to the table in order to decide who to target. And I know these terms have been thrown around so much. 2013 seems to be the year of the buzz phrases big data and programmatic marketing. And in many ways, they're confusing terms and misleading terms. The simplest way to think of them is big data simply mean lots and lots of data, more data than you're probably using today. And programmatic simply means the way in which you make use of that big data. Well, FBX is a perfect example of that. In order to know who to target and at what price to pay in the auction to target them, then you have to bring your own data to the table. And there are two primary types of data you should be thinking about: first-party data and third-party data. So what do we mean by that? Well, when we're talking about people who've already been to a brand's site and then left, that's something that's typically referred to as site retargeting. The idea that somebody has visited that page is your own first-party data. It's data about your customers generated from your site. That's probably the easiest type of data to take into FBX. And whether you realize it or not, you're taking data into FBX by doing site retargeting. But you can also use third-party data, and we'll touch on some examples of this in a few minutes from now, to go in and find some brand new people who perhaps haven't already engaged with your site. Now, because getting started with site retargeting is one of the easiest things to do, then anecdotally it seems as though the majority of FBX buyers today seem to be focused around site retargeting organizations, but we're actually seeing significant success using FBX for prospecting as well. So let's touch on how you would use the FBX with some of these tactics. Well, first of all, let's touch on search retargeting. We often call search retargeting our blessing and our curse in terms of a phrase and wish we'd have thought of something different. It's our blessing because people hear the term search and they hear the term retargeting and they think, fantastic, I need both of those things for my organization because they work so well. But then they hear search and they hear retargeting and think they're already doing it through other channels. Search retargeting, for those of you who haven't heard of it before, is the idea that we can find people who have not engaged with you before, based predominantly on their searches on Google, Yahoo, and Bing. And I'm not going to go into how we collect that data today. We have several other webinars that you can find on our Vimeo channel that will go into that in more detail, or feel free to reach out and ask us questions on that. But we're actually the second largest source of search data in the world, just behind Google, and can use that data for this type of targeting. To you, that is third-party data, but you can come to an organization like us and say, I want to find people who are searching for hotels in San Francisco, and we can find those people who did that search on Google, Yahoo, Bing, and target them on FBX with your ad. Now, up until very recently, the targeting was down the right-hand side, as Irene mentioned, but we're one of the early partners integrating for the newsfeed inventory as well, and so you can use that Google search data to target on FBX with newsfeed ads as well, which is a very exciting development. The other format of third-party data which is useful for prospecting that you may not be aware of is that models can be built based on your visitors and your audience. And those models is called lookalike targeting. For us, think of it more as search-alike. We can find peripheral searches and behaviors that people are doing that drove them to your conversion. We can tag and identify and determine a value for each of those people, and then go into FBX, again, the right-hand rail and newsfeed, in order to find those people for you. There's another example of third-party data usage in FBX. And then we come on to the side of the house that probably many of you are already looking at and doing, this idea of site retargeting. Now, it's important to note, site retargeting is fundamentally broken within this industry. The original idea behind site retargeting was it was a great way to re-engage with those individuals who came to your site and abandoned before completing the action you wanted them to take. The trouble is, site retargeting looks like it's performing so much better than it really is. And the reality is, if you take into account the cost of actually prospecting for those individuals in the first place, then site retargeting metrics look very, very different. But the trouble is, dedicated site retargeting companies are incentivized to teach marketers to spend more, not spend smarter. Easy for me to say. But the reality of site retargeting is that it's over-invested in, and this is coming from a guy who sells site retargeting to organizations every day. And so you have to be very careful with site retargeting. And so think of this term, programmatic site retargeting. It's this idea that you can now use more data to decide who has value for you and what that value is. And so when we're talking about using FBX to site retarget, then don't just think about the data that's generated from the visit to your site, but think about other third-party data. If you're a luxury car brand, for instance, and somebody happens to have come to your site and gone through the car configurator for your high-end sports car, it seems like they'd be a great person to site retarget using FBX. However, if at 2 in the morning we can also see that they're searching for bad debt credit card, then clearly there's somebody who's just a fan of the vehicle and isn't necessarily going to be able to make a purchase. Combining data sets like that before going in and making your decision on who to buy in FBX leads to efficiencies that you probably haven't seen before. And so when we think about FBX and how these things come together, then what that enables you to see is you can target not only with retargeting, which many of you are probably doing today, but you can also use things like search data to do search retargeting and find brand new people in FBX. And so as we come to the half-hour point here, we're going to jump in and I'm going to field the questions that have come in during the presentation to Irene and myself. Down in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, as a quick reminder, you will see the chat interface where you can ask your questions. We have quite a few coming in, so without delay, I'm going to start jumping into those right now. And as Irene mentioned at the beginning, you can also reach out to her and I directly. Our email addresses should be on your screen now, and more information at chango.com/resources. So Irene, the first couple of questions came in during your presentation. I wonder if, first of all, you can answer for Michelle, what is an Open Graph sponsored story?
Yep, sure. So Open Graph Sponsored Story is basically, sponsored stories are advertisements that are created based off of the voice of a friend. When you have Open Graph Sponsored Story, Open Graph is basically defining type of linkage that you have to Facebook. So if you have a website, let's say the New York Times, you can actually get it enabled with the Open Graph of Facebook. It requires developers on your end to be able to do that. So the New York Times would have to make sure that technically they're integrated in order to support Open Graph. And then any activities that occur on New York Times. So when you see, like, if you jump into New York Times and it asks you to log into your Facebook account and do you want to allow it to post on your behalf, that's an example of an enabled website for Open Graph. So when you take actions and you're looking and you're reading through things, if that action is defined as something that would trigger an ad, it can automatically post to Facebook, and if you've paid for the advertisements to automatically be generated, it'll automatically generate an advertisement based off of that activity and show it to your friends.
Perfect. Thank you, Irene. Irene, Casey has a question here which I believe I know the answer to, but I'm actually not 100% certain. Casey's question is, does FBX act like a co-op and resell or use retailer data for other purposes? Now, my response to that question would be, in general terms, no. For instance, if you are targeting FBX using third-party retailer data through Tango, for instance, then that data is your data and it's not going to be used elsewhere. There would be a scenario, though, I guess, where you can target specific individuals on your side of the house, Irene, where you can find those people who have liked a particular brand or have liked certain retailers. Whilst I wouldn't say that's Facebook acting like a co-op, I guess it is fair to say that you can be targeting based on the activities or interactions with other brands. Is that fair to say, Irene, do you think?
So you can target based off of well, the kind of basics are like anything that is on somebody's profile, and that's usually where interest of certain brands occur. So if people say that in their interest they like, Nike, for example, that would be something that is targetable. In terms of like actions that people are taking, or like a lot of people ask about, like, well, what if somebody wrote something in their status? Statuses are not targetable. Anything that you mention in your status is not targetable. But to a certain extent, if you like certain pages, Facebook also allows you to target for that. It's not, one-to-one specific, I want to target everybody that has liked a very specific page. But, as an advertiser, you do have the option of doing that. Now, if you own your page, if you have the administrative access to your own Facebook page, you can target everybody on your own Facebook page because that connection is clear. And then in terms of like third-party data, Facebook does have broad category targeting options where they've integrated third-party data from data providers, and so you actually currently now have the ability to target based off of like purchase behavior, which has never been available before, and this is now incorporated into sort of the advanced targeting options.
Perfect, thank you. The question from Simon is about logistics around this. Will the presentation be made available afterwards? Yes, we always make it available both on our Vimeo channel and also through SlideShare. And for those of you who attended, you'll be emailed the links to those, so you'll certainly have access to this recording as well as the deck. Irene, a couple of questions came in from Melissa. The first question came in whilst you were talking about the sponsored stories opportunity on Facebook. And her question is, isn't that risky to the brand as it could come off as fake and insincere like an offline advertorial? Do you have any thoughts or comments on that?
Sure. So we've actually found a lot of engagement from sponsored stories. So people are very influenced by what their friends like and what their friends do. And with brands, like sponsored stories have been great for brands because, what you're really doing is just like you're creating a story about an activity that actually did occur that your friends took. And it's a truthful activity. So if your friend likes, the Facebook page for Coca-Cola or for Starbucks. You know, they're genuinely interested in that brand, and when their friends see it, like it starts this, you know, very fast kind of bandwagon effect where their friends, you know, want to also like it too because, you know, now they know it's available and they, you know, also have that affinity for the brand. What we've also found is like there have been some studies recently that have been released about, you know, whether or not having fans for brands makes a lot of sense, and it actually does. The stats that they show are pretty staggering in terms of like fans for brands are much more willing to share messages and are much more willing to be advocates of the brand without being asked to than non-friends of brands that are just like fairly well known. They're also much more likely to purchase from the brand even if they don't earn more money. So it's pretty, you know, eye-opening, these stats, and I think as, you know, Facebook develops as a platform, we already know that there's just a lot of positive feedback from people, you know, seeing that their friends also like brands. And so I think there's just like, you know, net, like it's a great way for brands to advertise and leverage. And it's also the only platform where you have this social connection that you can take advantage of and show specifically friends of a specific user the things that their friends are interested in.
Great. Great question here from James. When Chango refers to targeting in Facebook with search data, are we referring to third-party data or are we referring to the new Facebook graph search? Good question. Let me clarify. We as an organization, that is Chango, have built this huge data network over the last 4 years that enables us to collect and generate and see billions upon billions of the searches that are occurring on Google, Yahoo, and Bing every single month. We store that in anonymous cookie profiles and can use that data to target individuals across the media exchanges, one of which is FBX. So that significant reach across all the exchanges gives us far more than a 90% reach of the US, UK, and Canadian audience. And so we're not referring to the searches that are taking place on Facebook Graph Search. This is searches on primary search engines and is being stored against these profiles. It means that the prospecting for new customers is being done entirely to only those individuals who are raising their hand and saying, "This is exactly what I'm looking for." I hope that helps, James. So Irene, going to come to you with the next question, but just before I do, please all remember down in the bottom left-hand corner, we have the ability for you to ask questions. We have a few more left here, so we'll take the time to address those for you now. Irene, see if you can answer this one from Robert. Can you link out and target only mobile through sponsored stories without a Facebook page? If it would be to a mobile website, not an app, we would also want to carrier target if possible and at the handset level. My understanding is that's not possible at that granular level. Is that the case?
That's correct. So the only thing that you can, so the question is really specific and it's really well phrased. To that point, like if you have a mobile app, that's the only like advertisement that you actually can run that is not influenced by a Facebook page. And other advertisements that are kind of allowed in mobile right now, other than mobile app install, are anything that is a sponsored story or anything that is a page post, and both of those require Facebook pages.
Interesting. Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
So one last thing in terms of the carrier targeting. Carrier targeting is possible. You can target by the type of smartphone that's used. If it's an iPhone, if it's an iPad, if it's an Android, you can also target by the operating system.
Very interesting. Okay, so our last question here came in during the presentation, and it was, what does PMD stand for? And Irene provided a link to you all in the chat interface. For those of you who didn't see it, then PMD that we were referring to is Preferred Marketing Developer, and there is a link in that chat interface. A few others of you have asked questions about this recording being available. It will be on our Vimeo channel and SlideShare channel, and you can find out more information there. You can also go to chango.com/resources and download the Facebook Exchange Handbook, everything you need to know about Facebook marketing, including prospecting with search data. I want to thank our guest speaker today, Irene from Ampush, and we will send you information about our next upcoming webinar 4 weeks from now shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand by.